The bridge of the horizon hummed with quiet energy as Commander Jake Morrison stared at the massive structure floating in the darkness ahead. The station was enormous, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Lights flickered across its surface like stars, and dozens of ships moved around it in careful patterns. This was the haven, the central meeting place of the Galactic Council. Jake felt his heart beating faster. This was the moment Earth had prepared for. After 10,000 years of isolation, humanity was about to meet the galaxy again. "All systems ready, Commander," Amy Chen said from the pilot seat. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. "Transmitting our greeting message now," Jake nodded. Behind him, the rest of the bridge crew watched their screens with nervous anticipation. Greg Torres, the science officer, checked the data feeds one more time. Everyone knew how important this moment was. The response came faster than expected. A series of strange sounds filled the bridge, then the translation system kicked in. A voice spoke, but it sounded confused and uncertain. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Your ship design matches no known civilization. State your origin and purpose." Jake took a breath and activated the communication system. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earthship Horizon. We come in peace, seeking contact with the Galactic Council. We request permission to dock and meet with your leaders." There was a long silence. Jake could see Amy glancing at him with worry in her eyes. Had something gone wrong with the translation? Finally, the voice returned, but now it sounded shocked. "Did you say Earth? As in the homeworld of humanity?" "Yes," Jake replied. "We are humans from Earth. We have traveled far to find you." Another pause, longer this time. Then multiple voices began speaking at once in the background, too fast for the translator to keep up. Someone was arguing. Someone else sounded frightened. "Commander Morrison," the original voice said carefully, "please maintain your current position. Do not approach the station. We need to verify something. Please stand by." The communication cut off. Jake looked at his crew. Greg shook his head slowly. "That was not the reaction I expected," Greg said. "They sound scared of us. Or they think we are lying," Amy added. "Maybe they have never heard of Earth?" Jake walked to the main viewport and stared at the station. Something was wrong. Earth's old records clearly showed that humanity had been part of the galactic community once. The Council should remember them. But the confusion in that voice suggested something else entirely. An hour passed before the communication came again. This time a different voice spoke. It was deeper, calmer, with a quality that suggested great age. "Commander Morrison, this is Council Leader Velkara. We have discussed your claim, and we have decided to allow you to dock. However, you must understand our concern. According to our historical records, humanity is not real. You are folklore, nothing more than ancient stories we tell to children." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "I don't understand. Humanity is very real. I am standing here talking to you." "Yes, and that is what troubles us," Velkara replied. "Our records go back 50,000 years. In all that time, there has never been any physical evidence of humans. The stories describe a species with unusual traits, one that vanished long ago. Most scholars believe these stories were invented, cautionary tales to teach lessons. Yet here you are, claiming to be exactly what the legends describe." "We have proof," Jake said quickly. "DNA samples, historical records, technology. We can show you everything. Then please dock at Bay 17. We will meet you in the council chamber. But Commander, I must warn you, many species here believe this is a trick, a deception by an unknown enemy. You will face suspicion and hostility. Be prepared." The communication ended. Jake turned to his crew. Amy looked worried. Greg appeared deep in thought. The others waited for orders. "All right," Jake said firmly. "We came here to make contact." "That has not changed. Amy, take us in. Greg, prepare all the evidence we brought. Everyone else, dress uniforms. We are going to prove to them that humanity is not a myth." The docking procedure went smoothly. The station's systems were advanced but not difficult to understand. When the airlock opened, Jake led a team of 5 into the station. The corridor beyond was wide and filled with strange atmosphere. The gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal. A figure waited for them. It stood on 6 legs with a body covered in smooth chitin that reflected the light. Multiple eyes arranged in a circle examined the humans carefully. This was clearly not human, but it moved with intelligence and purpose. "I am Velkara," the creature said through a translation device. "Please follow me to the council chamber. And Commander, try not to react to what you see there. Many species will be seeing humans for the first time. Some may respond poorly. The walk through the station took 20 minutes. Jake saw dozens of different species along the way. Some stopped to stare at the humans. Others hurried away as if frightened. A few made gestures that the translator could not interpret. The council chamber was vast. Hundreds of beings sat in a circular arrangement, representing what must be dozens of different civilizations. As the humans entered, a wave of sound washed over them. Voices raised in surprise, fear, and anger. Velkara led them to the center of the chamber. The noise gradually died down as everyone focused on the humans standing below. Members of the council, Velkara began. I present to you Commander Jake Morrison and his crew. They claim to be human, from the planet Earth. They have come seeking alliance and friendship with our civilizations. A being made of what looked like living crystal rose to speak. This is impossible. Humanity is a legend. These must be imposters, agents of an enemy trying to deceive us. We are willing to undergo any test you require, Jake said loudly. Examine our biology, our technology, our history. We will prove our identity. Another council member, this one resembling a large bird, spoke next. Even if they are what they claim, should we trust them? The legends say humans are dangerous, warlike, unpredictable. They come from a world of death and violence. The legends also say we protect those who cannot protect themselves, Jake replied. That we stand with our allies no matter the cost. Give us a chance to show you the truth. Before anyone could respond, an alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed along the walls. Velkara's entire body stiffened. What is it? Jake demanded. A technician rushed into the chamber, speaking rapidly in a language the translator struggled with. But Jake caught enough words to understand. Attack. Outer colonies. The devourers, Velkara turned to the council, her voice tight with fear. The devourers have arrived at the border colonies. 3 worlds are under attack. They have come in greater numbers than ever before. The chamber erupted in panic. Species shouted at each other, demanding action, calling for evacuations, arguing about defensive strategies. Jake stepped forward. Let us help. Give humanity a chance to prove we are real, and that the legends about us are true. Velkara looked at him with her many eyes. In them, Jake saw desperation fighting with doubt. The council leader was silent for a long moment. Very well, Commander Morrison, she finally said. You may observe our defensive preparations, but you will take no action without council approval. We must see if you truly are what the legends describe, or if you are simply more deaths waiting to happen. Jake nodded, but his jaw was set with determination. Humanity had returned to a galaxy that thought them nothing but stories. Now it was time to show them that some legends were built on truth. The first colony fell in less than 6 hours. Jake watched the data streams from the council observation room, his fists clenched at his sides. The devourer machines moved through the colony like a swarm of metal locusts, consuming everything in their path. Buildings, vehicles, even the ground itself disappeared into their processing units. The council fleet responded exactly as their protocols demanded. They evacuated what civilians they could, established a defensive perimeter, and when the devourers pushed too hard, they retreated in perfect formation. Not a single ship was lost. It was textbook military strategy. It was also completely wrong. They are just letting them have the planet, Greg said quietly beside Jake. He had been analyzing the battle data for hours. They could hold that position. The devourers are not adapting to the council's weapons yet. They are worried about losing ships, Amy replied. She stood near the viewport, watching distant flashes of weapons fire. Every species here calculates victory in terms of preservation. They would rather lose ground than lose people. Jake understood the logic. Each council species had smaller populations than humanity. They could not afford the casualties that came with aggressive warfare. But watching millions die because of that caution made his stomach turn. Lieutenant Sophie Barnes entered the observation room, her face tight with frustration. She had spent the day with the council's military commanders, trying to understand their tactics. Commander, they are planning to abandon the entire outer sector. 17 colonies, home to over 200 million people. They say it is the only logical choice. Logical, Jake repeated, the word bitter in his mouth. There is nothing logical about letting those people die when we could save them. The council does not see it that way, Sophie said. To them, losing those 17 colonies saves their core military strength. They can rebuild colonies. They cannot rebuild trained soldiers and expensive warships. The second colony fell 2 days later, then the third. Each time the pattern repeated. The council evacuated some civilians, defended briefly, then pulled back. The devourers consumed everything left behind. Jake requested a meeting with Velkara. The council leader received him in a private chamber, away from the chaos of the main council hall. Her crystalline eyes reflected the stress she was under. "Commander Morrison, I know what you are going to say," Velkara began before Jake could speak. "You think we are cowards. You think we should fight harder. I think you are letting people die who could be saved," Jake said bluntly. "My science officer has identified patterns in the devourer attacks. They focus on industrial centers first, then spread outward. If we hit them during that initial phase, we could disrupt their entire formation." "At what cost?" Velkara asked. "Your proposal would require ships to engage at close range, where devourer weapons are most effective. We would lose vessels. Good people would die." "People are already dying," Jake replied. "The difference is whether they die helpless on the ground or fighting back in ships." "At least in ships they have a chance." Velkara's body seemed to sag. "You do not understand, Commander. We are not like you. The legends say humans come from a world of death where everything tried to kill you. You evolved to accept casualties as normal. We did not. Most council species evolved on peaceful worlds. The idea of deliberately accepting losses goes against everything we are." "Then let us do it," Jake said. "The horizon is one ship. If we fail, you lose nothing but a folklore legend. If we succeed, you gain hope." "The council will never approve such a mission," Velkara said sadly. "They see you as observers, nothing more. Many still doubt you are even real." Jake looked at the council leader for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "Then I am not asking for permission." 3 hours later, the horizon broke orbit without authorization. The council's communication channels exploded with angry demands for the ship to return. Jake ignored them all. He had made his choice. "Scanner contact," Greg called out. "Devourer formation attacking refugee convoy, 17 ships strong. The convoy has minimal defenses." "That is our target," Jake said. "Amy, get us there at maximum speed. Sophie, prepare all weapons. Greg, send out our tactical plan to all stations." Amy's hands flew across the controls. The horizon surged forward, faster than any council ship would dare fly through this region of space. Council captains watched in amazement as the human vessel pushed its engines past safe limits. The refugee convoy appeared on the main screen. 50 civilian ships struggled to escape while devourer machines closed in like sharks. The convoy's few escort vessels fired desperately, but their weapons barely slowed the enemy. "Transmitting to convoy," Jake said. "This is Commander Morrison of the Horizon. Hold your position. Help is coming." The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly between the convoy and the devourers. The enemy machines paused, their sensors analyzing this new arrival. Then they changed course, all 17 ships turning toward the horizon. "Here they come," Sophie said. "All weapons ready. Permission to fire? Light them up," Jake ordered. The horizon's weapons were primitive by council standards. No beam technology, no quantum disruption fields, just kinetic cannons that fired solid metal at tremendous speeds. The council had dismissed these weapons as outdated. They were wrong. The first salvo tore through the lead devourer like it was made of paper. The machine tried to adapt, shifting its armor plating to compensate. But the horizon's guns fired from multiple angles, each shot calculated to hit where the armor was weakest. Sophie had studied every bit of data the council had on devourers, and she used that knowledge perfectly. "They are trying to surround us," Greg warned. "Let them," Jake replied. "Amy, bring us about." "I want our bow pointed at that big one in the center," Amy grinned. This was the kind of flying council pilots would never attempt. She threw the horizon into a spin that would have torn apart a less sturdy ship. The council vessels watching from a distance could barely track the human ship's movements. The devourers opened fire. Energy beams scorched the horizon's hull, but the ship's armor held. Human ships were built tough, designed for the brutal realities of combat. Damage reports flooded in, but nothing critical was hit. "Ramming speed," Jake ordered. The bridge crew did not hesitate. They had trained for this. They knew what their commander was capable of. Amy pushed the engines to their absolute limit. The Horizon charged directly at the largest devourer. At the last moment, Amy twisted the ship sideways. The Horizon's armored side smashed into the devourer with tremendous force. Metal screamed. Systems overloaded, but the enemy machine crumpled like a tin can. Before the other devourers could react, Sophie fired the ship's main cannon at point-blank range. The shot went straight through the damaged devourer's core. The machine exploded in a brilliant flash. 16 left, Sophie said calmly, adjusting targeting priorities. The battle lasted another hour. The Horizon darted through the devourer formation like a shark among fish. Every time the enemy thought they had the human ship cornered, Amy found an escape route that should not exist. Every time the devourers adapted to one tactic, Jake switched to another. Council military commanders watched in stunned silence. The humans were doing everything wrong according to standard doctrine. They took unnecessary risks. They damaged their own ship repeatedly. They should have been destroyed in the first 10 minutes. Instead, they were winning. The last devourer tried to flee. Jake would not allow it. The Horizon pursued, weapons blazing. Sophie's final shot cored the machine from stern to bow. The enemy vessel drifted in pieces. Jake stood on the bridge, breathing hard. Around him, his crew cheered. The Horizon was heavily damaged. 2 crew members were injured. The ship would need weeks of repairs, but the refugee convoy was safe. 10,000 lives saved. Belcara's voice came through the communication system. The council leader sounded shaken. Commander Morrison, what you just did was impossible. No single ship should be able to defeat 17 devourer units. Jake looked at the debris field floating around his ship. The legends were not exaggerations, council leader. They were warnings. Humanity fights differently than you. We take risks, we adapt. We never give up. And most importantly, we never abandon people who need help. I see that now, Belcara said quietly. The council is calling an emergency session. We need to talk about the future and humanity's place in it. Jake nodded, though the council leader could not see him. The galaxy thought humanity was folklore. Now they knew the truth. The legends were real and they had returned to fight. The council chamber was packed. Every species wanted to see the battle recordings to witness what the humans had done. The footage played on massive screens, showing the Horizon's impossible maneuvers and aggressive tactics. Some council members watched in awe. Others looked disturbed. Jake stood in the center of the chamber once more, but this time the atmosphere was different. The doubt was gone, replaced by curiosity and fear in equal measure. Beside him stood Amy and Greg, both still tired from the battle but standing straight and proud. Belcara spoke first. Commander Morrison, the council has reviewed your actions. You disobeyed direct orders and engaged the enemy without authorization. Under normal circumstances, this would result in your expulsion from council space. Jake kept his face neutral. He had expected this. However, Belcara continued, you also saved 10,000 lives that we had deemed lost. You demonstrated capabilities that we thought impossible. The council has decided not to punish you. Instead, we have questions. A reptilian council member rose to speak. His scales were deep green and his voice carried across the chamber clearly. Commander, your tactics make no sense to our military analysts. You deliberately damaged your own ship. You exposed your crew to unnecessary danger. Yet you won. Explain how this is possible. Jake took a breath. This was the moment to make the council understand. To explain that, I need to tell you about Earth, about where humanity comes from. He gestured and Greg activated a holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, spinning slowly. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked beautiful and peaceful. This is our home, Jake said. It looks gentle, but that is a lie. Earth is what we call a death world. Almost everything on our planet evolved to kill and eat other things. The oceans are filled with predators. The land has creatures with claws, fangs, and venom. Even the plants are dangerous. Another image appeared showing various Earth animals. Lions, sharks, bears, snakes, crocodiles. The council members leaned forward, studying these creatures that looked like nightmares made real. Humanity survived on this world by becoming the greatest predator of all. Jake continued. We learned to hunt in groups. We learned to make tools and weapons. We learned to track prey for days without stopping. Most importantly, we learned to never give up, no matter how bad things looked. A bird-like council member spoke up. But you are not hunting now. You are fighting machines. The principle is the same, Jake replied. Humans evolved to take risks because playing it safe on Earth meant starving. We evolved to keep fighting even when injured because giving up meant death. These instincts are built into us. They cannot be turned off. Greg stepped forward. I have been studying council biology. Most of your species come from what humans would consider paradise worlds. Planets with few predators, abundant food, and stable climates. You evolved to value caution and preservation because those traits helped you survive. Humanity evolved the opposite way. That is why our tactics seem insane to you, Jake added. We accept casualties because we know that sometimes the only way to win is to charge forward no matter the cost. It is not that we do not value life, we do, but we value the mission more. Velkara's multiple eyes studied Jake carefully. You mentioned that humanity was part of the galactic community once. What happened? Why did you vanish for 10,000 years? Jake nodded to Greg, who brought up more data. We found fragments of our history in Earth's oldest archives. 10,000 years ago, a great catastrophe struck this part of the galaxy. The records are damaged, but it seems a massive energy wave swept through space, destroying most advanced civilizations. Humanity saw it coming. We built a defensive barrier around our solar system, something that would protect Earth from the wave. But the barrier also cut us off from the rest of the galaxy. We could not send or receive messages. We could not travel beyond it. We were alone. An elderly council member made of crystalline structures spoke, her voice like chiming bells. I am Thelnov, keeper of ancient histories. I have studied the old records my entire life. There are fragments, pieces of data that never made sense, stories of a great disaster, of civilizations that fell silent, of protectors who disappeared. We always thought these records were corrupted, meaningless. She activated her own display, showing ancient text in languages even the translators struggled with. But if humanity did exist, if you did build a barrier and hide behind it, then these fragments finally make sense. You were the protectors. You were the ones who tried to save others before saving yourselves. The barrier failed 3 years ago, Jake said. We do not know why, but when it fell, we could finally see the stars again. We could finally travel beyond our system. We came looking for the civilizations we once knew, and we found you. A galaxy that had forgotten us, that thought we were just stories. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then alarms began blaring again. The same technician from before rushed in, his movements frantic. The devourers have launched a massive attack on the core worlds, and he reported. Hundreds of ships, possibly thousands. They are coming in greater numbers than ever recorded. All defensive fleets are being recalled, but our projections show we cannot hold against this force. Panic rippled through the chamber. Species began shouting, demanding evacuations, calling for their homeworlds to be prioritized. Velkara tried to restore order, but her voice was drowned out. Jake looked at Amy and Greg. They both nodded. They knew what he was going to do. Contact Earth, Jake said quietly to Greg. Tell them we need reinforcements, everything they can send. Then Jake raised his voice loud enough to cut through the chaos. Council members, listen to me. You are facing extinction. The devourers have committed their full strength to destroying you. If you fight the way you have been fighting, you will lose. Velkara managed to quiet the chamber. What are you suggesting, Commander? Let humanity help. Really help, not just observe. Earth can send ships and soldiers. We can teach you how to fight the way Deathworlders fight. We can show you that sometimes the only way to survive is to be willing to die fighting. The crystalline council member from before spoke again. You said humanity is dangerous. You said you evolved to be killers. Why should we trust you with our defense? Jake met the being's gaze steadily. Because the legends got one thing right. Humanity does not abandon its allies. 10,000 years ago, we tried to protect the galaxy from catastrophe. We failed, but we tried. Now we have returned and we find you facing destruction. Do you think we would just watch you die? That is not who we are. That is not who we have ever been. Velkara looked around the chamber, seeing the fear in every face. Then she looked back at Jake. How long until Earth's reinforcements arrive? 3 weeks, Jake replied. Maybe less if they push their engines hard. The devourers will be here in 4 weeks, Velkara said. If your ships arrive in time, if you can truly help us survive this, then humanity will have earned more than just council membership. You will have earned our eternal gratitude. We do not fight for gratitude, Jake said. We fight because it is the right thing to do. Another council member stood, one who had been silent until now. He was tall and thin with skin that seemed to shift colors, I am Commander Shardek of the Defense Fleet. If Earth's ships are coming, we need to coordinate our strategies. Commander Morrison, will you work with our military to plan the defense? Jake nodded. Gladly. But understand this will not be comfortable for you. Human tactics require accepting losses. You will need to order your people into danger. Some of them will not come back. Can you do that? Shardek was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke firmly. If it means saving my world and my people, yes. Teach us how Deathworlders fight. Over the next 3 weeks, the Council space transformed. Human instructors arrived on the first ships from Earth, teaching Council military officers about aggressive tactics, about taking risks, about the psychology of never surrendering. It went against everything the Council species believed, but desperation made them willing to learn. Jake worked with Admiral Peter Wade, who had arrived commanding Earth's deep space fleet. Peter was old, scarred, and had fought in more battles than Jake had been alive. He took one look at the Council's defensive plans and told Velkara they were worthless. You are trying to defend everything, Peter said bluntly. That just means you defend nothing well. Pick your critical worlds. Fortify them. Let the devourers waste time on the others while we prepare a kill zone. It was brutal logic, but the Council accepted it. They had no choice. When the devourer fleet appeared on the sensors, it was even larger than predicted. 2,000 machines all converging on Council space like a metal tide of death. Jake stood on the Horizon's bridge, watching the enemy approach. Beside him, Amy checked her controls one more time. Greg coordinated with the fleet's other science officers. Sophie prepared the weapons. All ships report ready, the communication officer said. 800 Council vessels, 100 human ships. We are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Jake remembered Earth's history. Humanity had faced worse odds and survived. They would do so again. Send to all ships, Jake ordered. Today we show the galaxy what it means to fight beside humans. Today we prove the legends were true. Today we win or we die trying. The battle began at the edge of the Threshold system, 6 hours from the Council homeworld. The Devourer fleet came in waves, each one testing the defenders, probing for weaknesses. Admiral Peter Wade watched from his flagship and smiled grimly. The enemy was following predictable patterns. Just like we planned, Peter said to his tactical officer. They think we are like every other species they have faced. Let them keep thinking that. The human ships formed the front line, their heavy armor gleaming in the light of the system's star. Behind them, Council vessels arranged themselves in supporting positions, their long-range weapons ready. It was a formation that looked defensive, but Peter had designed it as a trap. The first wave of devourers hit the human line like a hammer. Energy beams scorched hull plating. Kinetic rounds tore through space. The human ships rocked under the assault but held position. Not one vessel broke formation. Damage reports coming in, Jake's communication officer said aboard the Horizon. The Liberty took heavy hits but is still combat effective. The Freedom reports minor damage. All ships holding. Jake watched the tactical display. The Devourers were doing exactly what Peter predicted. They focused their fire on the human ships, trying to break through what they saw as the weakest point in the defense. They did not realize they were being led into a killing field. Council ships, commence firing, Peter ordered. Behind the human line, 300 Council vessels opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons were more advanced than anything humanity possessed. Beam weapons that could cut through devourer armor like butter, missiles that could track targets through impossible maneuvers, energy fields that disrupted machine consciousness. 50 devourers died in the first minute. The machines tried to adapt, shifting their formations, redistributing their forces, but every time they moved, they exposed themselves to more Council fire. The human ships kept them pinned in place, absorbing punishment while the Council vessels did the real damage. Greg was working frantically aboard the Horizon, coordinating with Council scientists across the fleet. They had discovered something important about how the Devourers operated. The machines were not truly independent. They were networked together, controlled by command nodes scattered throughout their fleet. I have identified 17 command nodes, Greg reported. They are larger than the standard Devourer ships with more complex energy signatures. If we can destroy those nodes, we can break their coordination. How do we get close enough? Jake asked. Those nodes are protected by dozens of regular machines. We need to punch through their formation, Greg said. Fast, aggressive, overwhelming force. Exactly the kind of attack that humans do best. Jake contacted Peter. Admiral, we have a target list. 17 command nodes. If we can take them out, the whole Devourer fleet will fall into chaos. Peter studied the tactical data. Those are suicide runs. We will lose a lot of ships getting close enough to kill those targets. I know, Jake said quietly. But it will work. Peter was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of command. All human vessels, new orders incoming. We are going to hit their command structure. This will not be easy. Many of you will not make it back. But if we succeed, we save billions of lives. I need volunteers for the assault squadrons. Every single human ship volunteered. Peter selected the fastest vessels, the ones with the best pilots and the heaviest weapons. Lieutenant Ben Hayes, who commanded a squadron of small attack craft, was chosen to lead the first strike. His target was the largest command node buried deep in the Devourer formation. Good luck, Lieutenant, Jake transmitted. Come back alive. Ben's voice came back steady and calm. Do my best, Commander. But if I do not make it, make sure they remember we went down fighting. Ben's squadron launched 20 small craft that accelerated to speeds Council pilots thought impossible. They dove into the Devourer formation like arrows into a forest. Enemy fire filled space around them. Ships exploded left and right. But the survivors kept going, kept pushing forward, kept firing. Aboard the horizon, Jake watched the tactical display with his heart in his throat. Ben's squadron was being torn apart. 18 ships, 15, 12. The numbers kept dropping, but they reached their target. Ben's remaining craft unleashed everything they had at point-blank range. The specialized weapons Greg had designed tore into the command node's core. For a moment, it looked like it was not enough. Then the node exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Immediately, a section of the Devourer fleet went dark. Dozens of machines drifted without purpose, their connection to the network severed. Council ships pounced on them, destroying the disabled enemies easily. It worked, Greg said, his voice filled with relief. The command node destruction disrupted an entire formation. How many of Ben's squadron made it? Jake asked. The tactical officer checked his screen. 4 ships, Commander. Ben is alive. Jake closed his eyes briefly. 16 people dead to kill 1 target. 16 families who would never see their loved ones again. But 5,000 devourers in that formation were now vulnerable. The mathematics of war were brutal. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human ships charged command nodes, taking horrific casualties but completing their missions. Council vessels provided covering fire, their superior weapons picking off devourers that were distracted by the human assaults. Sophie coordinated attacks from the horizon, her tactical mind working overtime to find the best approaches for each target. She directed human ships through gaps in the enemy formation, guided them to weak points in devourer defenses, calculated firing solutions that maximized damage. Amy kept the horizon moving constantly, never staying in one place long enough for the devourers to pin them down. She flew through debris fields that should have torn the ship apart, using destroyed vessels as cover, always staying one step ahead of enemy targeting. On the other side of the battlefield, Commander Shardek commanded a council battle group with newfound aggression. He had learned from the humans. When a gap appeared in the devourer line, he did not hesitate. He ordered his ships forward, accepting the risk, trusting that bold action would pay off. It did. His battle group broke through and caught a cluster of devourers from behind. The machines used to predictable council tactics could not adapt fast enough. Shardek's ships devastated them. "Thank you, Commander Morrison," Shardek transmitted. "Your lessons have saved my ships and my crew." Jake smiled. The council was learning. They were becoming true warriors, but the battle was far from over. The devourers had numbers on their side and they were adapting. As each command node fell, the remaining nodes became harder to reach. The machines pulled back, creating defensive shells around their leaders. Peter saw the shift in tactics. "They are learning from us. We need to hit them harder, faster. Commit the reserve forces." More human ships entered the battle, fresh crews ready to fight. They crashed into the Devourer fleet like a wave of metal fury. Explosions lit up space. Ships on both sides died by the dozens. Greg made another discovery. "Admiral, I found something. There is a central command node larger than the others. It is coordinating all the other nodes. If we can destroy it, the entire Devourer fleet might collapse. And where is it?" Peter demanded. Greg highlighted a position on the tactical display. The central node was in the middle of the enemy fleet, protected by hundreds of Devourer ships. Getting to it would require going through the heart of enemy territory. That is a death trap, Peter said bluntly. It is also our best chance to end this battle, Greg replied. Peter looked at the display for a long moment. Then he made his decision. Prepare the assault. I want our best ships, our best crews. We are going to kill that thing or die trying. Nina Ross, captain of the Defiant, was chosen to lead the assault. Her ship was fast, tough, and her crew was experienced. She studied the route to the target and shook her head. This is insane, she said. But when has that ever stopped us? 50 ships formed up around the Defiant. Half were human vessels. Half were council ships whose captains had volunteered for the mission. They had all learned the same lesson over the past hours. Sometimes you had to risk everything to win. All ships, this is Captain Ross, Nina transmitted. We are going to punch straight through to that command node. Do not stop for anything. Do not slow down. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. If you fall behind, the rest of us keep going. Understood? Affirmative responses came from every ship. Then let us show these machines what it means to fight the united fleet of humans and council. Forward! The assault group accelerated, building speed as they charged into the enemy formation. The devourers opened fire with everything they had. The first ships died almost immediately, then more. The tactical display became a cascade of red icons winking out. But the survivors kept going. Human and council ships fought side by side, covering each other, protecting the weak, striking at the strong. They had become more than just allies. They had become brothers in arms. Nina pushed the Defiant to its absolute limits. Her ship took hit after hit, but the armor held. Barely. Her crew worked miracles, keeping the systems operational. The engineering chief reported that the reactor was running far beyond safe levels. Keep it together a little longer, Nina ordered. We are almost there. The explosion lit up the battlefield like a newborn star. For 3 seconds, every sensor in the system was blind. When they cleared, the central command node was gone. In its place was an expanding cloud of debris. Across the Devourer fleet, machines suddenly lost coordination. Ships that had moved with perfect precision now drifted aimlessly. Some fired at random. Others simply stopped working. The network that had bound them together was shattered. All ships attack now, Peter ordered. Hit them while they are confused. The combined fleet surged forward. Human ships crashed into the disorganized Devourers with savage joy. Council vessels picked off targets with methodical precision. Working together, they were unstoppable. Jake watched from the horizon as the enemy fleet fell apart. Groups of Devourers tried to re-establish coordination, but without the central node, they could not sync their systems fast enough. Every formation that tried to organize was destroyed before it could become effective. We are winning, Amy said quietly. She could hardly believe it. We are, Jake agreed. But the cost? He thought of Nina and the Defiant, of Ben and his squadron, of all the others who had died to make this victory possible. 40 human ships were gone, over 15,000 people. The Council had lost 200 vessels and even more crew, but they had won. The Devourer threat was broken. The battle continued for another 6 hours as the fleet hunted down the remaining enemy machines. By the end, not a single Devourer remained operational. The machines that had terrorized the galaxy for a century were finally defeated. Jake stood in the aftermath, looking at the debris field that stretched across half the system. So much destruction, so much death, but also so much courage, so much sacrifice. Velkara's voice came through the communication system. All fleet commanders, please come to the Council homeworld. We need to talk about what happens next. 3 days later, Jake stood once more in the Council chamber. But everything was different now. The Council members looked at him not with doubt or fear, but with respect. Some even looked at him with something like reverence. The chamber was packed with people from across the galaxy. News of the battle had spread fast. Everyone wanted to see the humans who had saved them. Velkara spoke, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. People of the Council, we have survived the greatest threat our civilization has ever faced. We did so because of courage, sacrifice, and unity. But most of all, we survived because humanity returned to us. She turned to Jake. Commander Morrison, when you first arrived, we thought you were folklore. We thought the legends of your people were just stories to frighten children. We were wrong. Humanity is real, and everything the legends said about you was true. The legends said humans come from a world of death. Velkara continued. They said you are warriors without equal. that you never surrender, that you fight with a ferocity no other species can match. We saw all of this in battle, but the legends missed something important. She walked closer to Jake, her multiple eyes meeting his gaze. They missed your compassion, your willingness to sacrifice for others, your refusal to abandon those in need. You did not fight for glory or conquest. You fought because it was right, because you could not stand by and watch others die when you had the power to save them. The chamber erupted in sound as every species present showed their approval in their own way. Some clapped. Some made musical tones. Others simply stood in silence, which was their way of showing deep respect. When the noise died down, Velkara spoke again. The Council wishes to offer humanity full membership with all rights and privileges. We also wish to establish a permanent military alliance. Your soldiers will train our people. Your tactics will become part of our doctrine. Together, we will be stronger than either of us could be alone. Jake had discussed this moment with Admiral Peter and with Earth's government. They had agreed on what to say. The people of Earth accept your offer, Council Leader. But we have one condition. This alliance must be between equals. We will not be treated as subordinates or as myths. We are your partners, your friends, your brothers in arms. We stand together or not at all. Agreed, Velkara said immediately. From this day forward, humanity has a seat on this council. Your voice will be heard on all matters. Your vote will count the same as any other member species. She paused, then added, there is one more thing. The council has decided to create a new memorial on our homeworld. It will honor all those who died in the battle against the devourers. Human and council names together, because we all bled together. We all sacrificed together. We all won together. Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. Captain Nina Ross and her crew would be honored. All our fallen would be. Over the next few weeks, the galaxy slowly returned to something like normal. The damaged ships were repaired. The wounded were healed. The dead were honored in ceremonies that mixed human and alien traditions. Jake spent much of his time working with council military leaders, teaching them everything humans knew about warfare. Not just tactics and strategy, but the psychology behind them. The willingness to take risks. The importance of adaptability. The value of never giving up. Shardik proved to be an excellent student. The council commander had fully embraced the human way of thinking. He told Jake that the battle had changed him, had shown him that caution was not always the same as wisdom. My people evolved on a peaceful world, Shardik said one day as they reviewed tactical simulations. We never learned to be warriors. But you humans, you had no choice. Your world forced you to become strong or die. Now you are teaching us that strength. We will never forget this gift. Greg and the council scientists were working on combining human and council technology. The results were impressive. Ships that had human durability and council precision. Weapons that had human power and council accuracy. The best of both civilizations coming together. Amy had become something of a legend among council pilots. They studied recordings of her flying, trying to understand how she made maneuvers that broke every safety protocol. She laughed and told them it was simple. You just had to stop worrying about dying and start worrying about completing the mission. Sophie trained council tactical officers, showing them how to think like predators instead of prey. It was a difficult adjustment for species that had never been hunters, but they worked hard. They knew their survival might depend on these lessons. One evening, Jake stood on an observation deck looking out at the council homeworld below. The planet was beautiful, with 3 moons and rings that caught the light. It was so different from Earth, yet it felt like home now. Amy joined him at the viewport. What are you thinking about? She asked. About how much has changed, Jake said. We came here expecting to find people who remembered us. Instead, we found people who thought we were myths. Now look at us. Part of the council, training their military, building a future together. The legends were true, Amy said, but they were incomplete. They focused on our ability to fight and forgot our reasons for fighting. What are our reasons? Jake asked, curious to hear her answer. Amy smiled. We fight because we care. Because we see someone in trouble and we cannot walk away. Because we know what it is like to face death every day, and we do not want others to face it alone. That is what makes us human, not our weapons or our tactics. Our compassion, Jake nodded slowly. She was right. Humanity had spent 10,000 years isolated, building their strength, preparing for the day they could return to the stars. But they had not lost their core values. They had not forgotten who they were. A message came through on Jake's personal communicator. It was from Velkara. The council leader wanted to meet with him about a new mission. There were other regions of space, other civilizations that might need help. Would humanity be willing to explore and protect? Jake looked at Amy, who grinned. They both knew the answer. Tell her yes, Jake said. Humanity is back and we are not going anywhere. The galaxy needed protectors. Now it has them. Far across the galaxy, in classrooms and homes, young beings of 100 different species learned new stories. Not the old legends about terrifying warriors from a death world. New stories about brave humans who had arrived when all hope seemed lost. About soldiers who sacrificed themselves to save others. About people who fought not for glory but for what was right. The old legends had portrayed humanity as fearsome and dangerous. The new stories portrayed them as heroes and friends. Both versions were true. Humanity was capable of terrible violence, yes. But they used that violence only to protect the innocent and defend the weak. In council space, a new era had begun. The age of isolation was over. The age of fear had ended. This was the age of unity, of cooperation, of different species working together for common goals. And at the center of it all was humanity. No longer myths or legends or folklore. They were real. They were here. And they had proven beyond any doubt that some legends were built on truth. The galaxy had thought humans were just stories. Then humans had arrived to fight. And in fighting, they had saved everyone. That was a legend worth remembering. That was a truth worth celebrating. That was the beginning of something beautiful. The age of humanity had truly begun, and the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter for it.